So the Indiana Fever lose by 5 to the Minnesota Lynx. Ho hum, just another Fever game. Had a 12-point lead and managed to turn that into a 13-point deficit and kind of made a comeback, kind of didn't, and it wasn't enough in the end. I give the players a ton of credit. They're playing out there playing hard. Kelsey Mitchell is always running around doing amazing things. Aaliyah Boston doing great things. Like to see her be more aggressive. I think I say it about every video, but Lexi Hull had an amazing night. We're going to need her without Sophie Cunningham or Caitlin Clark. We managed to give Chloe Bibby exactly 0 minutes, while Natasha Howard just got her ass kicked all night in the post. Nothing against Natasha, but I mean, seriously, can Chloe do any worse? Let's stretch the floor. Let's unclog the paint. Even the announcers are bringing up how the paint's getting clogged. We need people to stretch the floor out. It's not working. It's not a good thing. Um, so, uh, just another night, We have big runs and big droughts. Big runs, big droughts. And just kind of how it goes. Without Sophie, without Caitlin, we're in trouble. The WNBA is the ones who are in big trouble, though. This is they've taken so many hits over the last few weeks. It's crazy. Not only they lost their two most marketable people, Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham. I mean, now there's this like injury timeline issue. I know a lot of people have talked about that, where Caitlin had a ankle injury that wasn't reported till 3 weeks later, 2 weeks later, whatever it was. And then like, well, okay, that it hurt her rehab process. No, it didn't hurt her rehab process. There's no transparency in the WNBA, and that's the kind of thing that's not going to happen. Now you got a group of people that are calling them out and calling for criminal investigation or legal investigations on the WNBA and the Fever, saying they've intentionally lied to us about their injuries to get people to come to games, to buy these streaming services, to tune in, in hopes that we might get to see Caitlin Clark come back when they know good and well she's not going to, which is looking less and less likely she's going to come back. And, like I said, a pending possible federal investigation, that article didn't come out of nowhere. Like I said, I would rather us not spend our tax money on that, but, I mean, I think it's going to happen. I think it's going to happen. I wish it wouldn't, but I think it's going to happen, just knowing our government and how that works. Um, so they're going to take some hits there. They've got people looking into that, and they just, I've always wondered. I made a lot of videos last year and this year saying, does the WNBA just not want to make money? Do they just want to keep living off of welfare and the handouts from the NBA? And it turns out, I guess the answer is yes. They want to just not make money. They don't, because when people come in and spend money, they have to answer those people. People want to know when they're spending money for something, they don't get their money's worth. Okay, why? They don't want the answer to that. They just want to do their league, their way, which is a very difficult watch. It's very difficult to watch these games. So many air balls, so many missed layups, just clunky, uncoordinated plays, just broken plays, very difficult to get cohesion. Um, I mean, gosh, two players with pink hair, nobody wants to see that. Call me an old fuddy-duddy. We don't want to see that. We had it in the 90s, the mid to late 90s with Dennis Rodman. It was interesting then, and something that kind of wore on us as that second three-peat went on, and it's been done. There's no need for it, When Dennis Rodman started dyeing his hair weird colors, he'd already won 2 championships as a major contributor with the Detroit Pistons, the Bad Boys, and won 2 Defensive Player of the Year awards. And he was on the backside of his prime in Chicago, but still he was averaging 40 rebounds a game or something, and making all. I think he was still making all NBA defensive teams, and just being a pest, being the worm, like he always was, playing amazing defense on Shaq. Anytime he played him, that was a big part of one of the things I remember the most about him with the Bulls. But so I mean, just nobody wants to see that. It's just a league with a lot of agendas. People are starting to push back on this Paige Becker's narrative. They are trying to say, she's replaced Caitlin Clark. She's doing better than Caitlin Clark did. We know what we're looking at. She gets a phantom whistle. If anybody breathes on her, it's a whistle. Whereas Caitlin Clark, they get to knock the shit out of her and might get a foul call if they chop one of her limbs off. They don't guard. They don't even try to guard Paige Beckers because she's one of them. You know, she's very woke. She made her big speech at the ESPYs about white privilege. She's not straight, unlike Caitlyn, and they want her to succeed. And it's just apathy. You know, they're trying to push Paige Becker. It's just apathy. They've been trying to push Asia Wilson. You know, that Nike commercial at the beginning of the year, you'd see it 3 or 4 times. Basically, every time they went to commercial, you'd see that commercial. You don't see it anymore. Apathy. You know, nobody wants to see that. All these, you know, commercials trying to push Sabrina Ionescu. Apathy. You know, Napheesa Collier, who didn't play in tonight's game, who's probably going to be the MVP this year. Apathy. Mrs. George Floyd herself. There's just nothing in this league outside of Caitlin Clark and, you know, the people around her like Kelsey Mitchell and Sophie Cunningham and Aaliyah Boston that we want to see. And they're just content to throw it away. And, I mean, the future for the WNBA is bleak. They're going to have a big crash out. Because the only way they're even going to have a season next year, they're going to have to give these ladies a big pay raise just to get them not to go on strike. Apparently they've rejected a proposal that would quadruple their pay. That's not enough, so they're going to have to, pay millions and millions just in salary to a lot of people that nobody wants to watch play. And that's just to keep the league going. And the thing is, the money that's coming in since Caitlin's arrived is going to dry up because so many of us, we're done with it. We're just about, if we've not already tuned out for good, we're about to tune out for good because, even with Caitlin Clark, it's just not worth it. You know, I want to see her leave this league and go overseas so bad or start her own league. Don't do it in rival because that's just the same people. All it is the same people trying to do the same thing pretty much. And, you know, using that as leverage to get more money. And it's crazy. And like I said, the WNBA, they're going to crash out big. And there's going to be documentaries made about this, books written, and it's just obvious they don't want to do well. They don't want to make money. They want to have their own little, rainbow flag league, and they don't want to have to answer to anybody. And if that means never making money, never turning a profit, never having any respectability, and having to live off the man's money, they're just happy to do that. And it's pretty pitiful. Just they need to completely remake this league over. That's the only way it's ever going to make it. Like I said, all these eyeballs on them now, and just with Caitlin Clark, and they've done their best to shove her out of the league. I don't care what Sophie says, that was intentional, taking her out. They want to make this league as little fun as possible. Look at Cheryl Reeve tonight. Why did they pick up Dejanay Carrington? She doesn't do anything. Except nobody likes her, and they know they're probably going to win the championship this year. They want to have Dejanay out there front and center to run us off. They're doing all these things to, Cheryl Reeve didn't put Caitlin Clark on the Olympic team. She didn't want us watching that. They want to do things their way. Did you see the way her and Stephanie White embraced each other after the game? You never saw. Half the time the coaches at the end of the games last year were yelling at Christy Sides. So it's pretty obvious this league has a major agenda. It has nothing to do with basketball or quality of play. It's who you are. It's what your identity is. It's what your sexual identity is. And, the league's going to crash out. We're going to watch it crash and burn. There's no transparency whatsoever. They just go and do what they do and offer no explanation, which is not going to fly. Angel Reese, misses all these games because the Chicago Sky absolutely suck with this mysterious back injury that no explanation or elaboration is given, and then she drops her new shoes. Their shoes come out, and suddenly she's playing again. We're not stupid. We know what's going on. Her shoes are out, so they need to have her out there playing to be more visible and hope they do better than Asia's shoes. It's just, I don't know. This league's fixing to crash out, and I for one, am looking forward to it. So, crash and burn, baby, and I'll talk to you guys later.